Okay, we're live.
All right, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to open. This is the December ECS board meeting. We'll do a roll call with Dan Kiefer.
Here.
Angela did not join yet. Sarah?
Here.
Both Marilyn and Andrea not available. Sapna? Kristen? Kristen's on the line.
Here.
Thanks.
I'm here.
Thank you. Tiffany's not on the line yet. Adam?
Here.
Brandon's not here yet. We anticipate that he will. Megan is not going to be here, and then we have Ben from last year. We don't have a full quorum yet, so we will kind of skip around the agenda today and come back to areas where we will need a full board vote. So we'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a big flag? All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment and preserve future generations. We grow citizens. Our vision is every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen, driving thoughtful change in the world around them. I'd like to recognize some of our guests. We have David Turner, who is a potential board candidate, Chelsea Young. We have Nicole Schaefer, and James. Anyone else?
And Jen.
Oh, just thank you. Thank you for the reminder. That was like I think we've been advised that we do not have any public comment for today, so we will we'll skip over that. We'll go straight to board business, and we will start with you, Mandy, with an update. If you could, that would be great. It looks like, I don't know that we have any viewers, but yes.
How about you? Okay, thanks everyone. I have been telling you a little bit about each school and the 3 areas of focus, which was literacy, environmental literacy, and school culture. And so this month is focused on the intermediate school. There's lots of good things that are happening in that school. We're really excited about them. So I want to share a little bit. And then we don't have our projector, but the one thing that I was going to share is that Falcon Joe came. And we had an actual falcon in the intermediate school landing on students' arms. So it was pretty exciting. So when we get to that part, just in your imagination, think about a falcon landing on a kid's arm. So as far as literacy goes, we do continue to show growth in our MAPS benchmarking, which is kind of exciting. And we also have in reading language use in our MAPS, those scores are already all at the 80th percentile. Which is, as you know, when we talked about this a couple months ago, that it would be my goal is that Tier 1 support services meet 80% of our students. And in reading, we're close. So in 3rd grade, we're at 76%, 4th is 78, and 5th is at 80. So our teachers are doing a really great job in getting all of those foundational skills ready to go in our literacy program. We're really excited about that. We're also continuing the tutoring. One of the things you'll see in that consent agenda is the open literacy tutoring. Through our ESSERS funding, we have a very exciting opening of that tutoring this time around, and within like 30 minutes, it had 78 kids. It was like a phenomenal turnout of parents who want their kids to receive tutoring through that service. So thank you all for continuing to support us in that venture and support our kids, which is really great. And then we also have increased time in intermediate school with our literacy schedules, which has allowed for a lot more of our authentic learning to happen. And so we have our Shakespeare competition going on with Rachel Lindiak Peters. I think there were like 70 kids that have done kind of signed up for that programming. The 5th grade went to visit the opera already. We had a virtual author talk with Zeta Elliott, who does Dragons in a Bag for our 5th graders. Our children are also participating in the Children's Choice Awards this year, which means they're reading all of the nominated books. They're going to vote on them, and then representatives are actually going to get to go to that award ceremony and see that in action, which is great. And then we also had a flash fiction writing contest, and so there was a grade winner at each one. So we're also not only just seeing that academic growth, but also seeing the passion kind of back for reading and writing in that intermediate school, which is really great. I was talking to Vicki Shea and Rachel and Yet Peters today about all the things that were happening, and to see the passion and excitement in their voices about all of the things that were happening was really great to see. And so our teachers are really honoring that voice and choice of students in literacy too. So really excited about it at intermediate. For environmental literacy and educating for sustainability, again, for this year, we increased access to our specialists. So we do have Chelsea Young here as one of those representatives of specialists, but we did have enough for each of our K-5, 2 buildings to have additional specialists, additional time. The intermediate specialists have really bonded together. It's really exciting to see the joy that they have for teaching and learning in that space and the passion projects that they have done, exciting things for kids. Our PE teacher started, Mr. Fingers started with the World Cup. He decided to have each one of the homerooms represent their country. And so they were able to learn about that country. They had 10 facts, they shared it with each other. And then there was that competitive spirit of which house and which class was going to kind of go through. And they actually had a bracket, and everybody could watch where they were as the World Cup kind of progressed. So that was really exciting. Our edible schoolyard programming is expanding. Anytime you walk into that intermediate school, you can smell the wonderful cooking smells that are coming right in that first classroom as you walk in. Frequently I walk in and I just kind of peek in and ask Ms. Keller what she's cooking for that day so I can kind of taste it. And then again, we have more experiences for kids. Our kids went on a climate strike. We had a STEM design challenge. And if you have any Connects or Legos in your house that you're willing to donate, we are always looking for those. We need both of those. Falcon Joe. So again, a picture of Falcon on kids' arms in the middle of the cafe. Thank you to the PCO. The Zoom-mobile came for our 3rd and 4th grade. We had a Carnegie Museum Natural History tour. And then we're starting a global citizenship series where our 3rd grade will get to go on all virtual field trips and get to kind of see what's going on in the world around them. So we're really hoping to not only get that environmental literacy program up and going again, but also those experiences for kids, those authentic global citizen experiences. And then we also have at intermediate, they're doing a ladder of responsibility challenge. And so they had, hopefully I can pass this around too, but they have recycling ambassadors, composting stewards, and commons caretakers. And they had a button badge design. And so everyone wanted to figure out if they could get their badge to be the one that was picked. And so we have one for each one. There are buttons. Vicki Shea was making the buttons in the home office so that all kids can wear them, depending on what they get to do. So that's that idea of that culture of environmental care and that we're responsible for everything in the world around us, not just our own little square desk. And that's had a big ripple effect with that building too, which leads to that culture of learning. And so one of the things I think that is a standout at the intermediate school is the house system. If you're not familiar with it, today we actually had our house leaders celebrated, and they got Letterman jackets. It was the most adorable ceremony in the world. There's 2 per house. They're really excited about creating again that system and that culture in that building and making sure that they're all working together towards that same goal of a positive place to learn and grow. We have those additional support staff again at intermediate, also a lot of student services that will help for our students for social emotional growth. We're tracking all of our PBIS information, the tickets and the growth there, as well as our discipline trackers. We have our assistant principal, Nick Tutelo. His goal for the year is to decrease the amount of office referrals. And so far this year, he has seen a drastic decrease. And so he was really excited. He thought he had picked a goal that was a little bit just kind of out of reach, and now he has to even alter it again because he's already met that goal. So we're really excited about things that have happened there. So those are the 3 main areas at intermediate school. If you have any questions, I can answer them about intermediate before I move on to my other one, which is celebration. Lots of good things are happening.
Say lots of fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, fun, well-rounded experiences.
Mhm. It's such a drastic change from like pandemic teaching to just here a Falcons in school and kids are going on field trips and it's really exciting.
What is the Falcon coming to the
We
board?
already,
meetings?
oh, the board meeting. That's actually a good question. Yes. It was really cool. I guess he also taught them how to take video of the Falcon landing. And so it's the slow motion video of this Falcon coming down there.
I think there were pictures posted on your ECS account. If anybody's interested. Nice, thank you.
Do you want me to do the next part too? Okay, so I also was asked to think about and to share some celebrations with you that have happened. I just wanted to first recognize our curriculum director, Cynthia Gilmer. She won the Women of Excellence Award, one of them from the New Pittsburgh Courier. And so last week on Thursday, a group of educators were able to go and celebrate with her. And it was really great to see her work being elevated in the community outside of ECS. And then also just that really culture of care of other women leaders and women educators in our space, celebrating and lifting her up. Really felt really good as a woman leader in education. So that was really nice and something that we want to celebrate for her. I also wanted to recognize Dr. Hill. She stepped into the role of the acting COO and she's taking on mentoring our middle school leaders, our principal and our assistant principal. She's been there with them almost every day, helping and supporting them as they grow into leaders too. And so she's been doing a phenomenal job in that role. Our music teachers and our art teacher and Chelsea, they have a very busy holiday season. We had a wonderful coffee house here at the middle school and art was on display. It was really, really nice to see. We had a music program here. We've had music programs all over. And the work that the educators are doing in that space, again, post-pandemic is great. Welcoming families in, celebrating art with each other is really nice to see. We had our high school, if anybody saw on social media, our principal and assistant principal, Carrie and Bree, did a kind of ugly sweater type of bonding. And just to see that again was really nice to see in that high school. That spirit, that camaraderie, that fun is really coming back. So we want to celebrate them. Rachel L.P., as I said, with her 70 Kids in Shakespeare, that's a very big lift and something we want to recognize. And then Tia and Kevin working with our enrollment team. We really thank you all for kind of jumping and pitching in. And also for that wonderful gingerbread house event. I had the best time with my son. He keeps talking about it too. So I brought my little one to the gingerbread house event. So we've just had a really good season of, I think, joy and laughter. And I just want to recognize that.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Rachel and on dismissal of the 70 students, she said, no one gets dismissed unless you put on a dramatic pose. I've never seen 70 students do, it was super. No one was looking. I happened to be working in the corner of the lunchroom interview room. She said, okay, dramatic pose, everyone. 70 kids were waiting for this immediate dramatic pose.
Bucket filling.
That's all I have.
Thank
Welcome.
you. So Brandon has since joined, so we do have 4 minutes. So thanks for that. All right, we do have a presentation. So I'd like to invite Nicole and John.
Sure. I mean, Nicole was invited. We had a conversation at the finance committee, right? And we decided really great to hear from Nicole as we begin the work of unwrapping and developing our foundation. So Nicole Schaefer has agreed to jump in tonight and share out her thinking, her plan, and give a little insight into the work that's going to start to happen in January going forward. So welcome, Nicole. And what I say, great to see you.
Yes, it's really lovely to see you all. Again, my name is Nicole Schaefer, and I'm actually, this is kind of like homecoming for me. I was one of the founders of BCS way back in 2008. And so being a part of the curriculum design and development, and have really done pretty much every job, I think, within the institution, including moving tables, cleaning toilets, scrubbing graffiti off walls, you name it, I've done it, and the mix of that too. And I had the opportunity to move out of ECS as our bench was being built, and as someone with a big personality and a lot of wanting to get into the weeds of lots of work, it was time for me to let others join and jump up and down and make decisions. And so I exited around 18 months ago to the Community Science Center, where I was the senior director of STEM education. And now there has been an opportunity, as we've been, thinking about this moment, when the foundation, which is a little entity that was created probably about a decade ago, maybe a bit more, when we were going through the divorce with Imagine Schools. And those of you that have been around or not been around, Imagine Schools was our charter management company, which allowed us the original investment dollars to get into the business of charter schools. It's a business in which you need money in order to set up schools. We orchestrated the divorce of that, and at the time, there was an opportunity that we may have needed to purchase some buildings or be able to create another entity. And so we, with the advice of our legal team, had created this entity called the foundation. And fast forward, it sat vacant and without much movement, because there was actually not a need for it. And the business of running schools, as you've heard, requires the attention of really all of the leadership on a daily basis. There was not really time to think about figuring out ways or strategies to think about supplementing the very well reimbursement rate that we have been very fortunate to have over the course of the charter school development here in the city. And so we are now at a time with the high school, with capital projects moving, with needing, as ESSER's funding is changing, that we've got all of these great programs or ideas that are coming out of our schools and our teachers and our administrators that could use some additional dollars and cents. And in the past, when we've looked at, and I learned this, I think one of the biggest takeaways of my work at the Carnegie Science Center was, fundraising is only about 10% of proposal writing. And I think the way that PCS had kind of approached this in the past is it was very formulaic and very transactional. And so we would say, oh, Heinz is asking for proposals on this, or we need this. Let's just push out a proposal, send it off, and hope for the best, fingers crossed. When the actually fundraising is about, I would say, 90% relationship building. It's also has a strong foot in the programmatic work that's happening in an organization. And then the other 10%, once you've got your boilerplate, is about 8 to 10 to 14 hours of proposal writing, depending on the complication of it. And that learning allowed me to come back to John and his team and say, I think we're like on the moment. And I think that there's an opportunity here for me to come in and say, I know enough about programmatically how the mission and values of BCS are evolving over time, and still have a couple of relationships with the key stakeholders, although all of the faces mainly on this board are new. But this potentially could be a nice opportunity for me to take a chance to set up a sustainable entity to allow you to think about capital projects in a really thoughtful way, and to scrape up some dollars that are actually sitting on the table all around the city. We just haven't actually had the time or the energy to go after that. Secondly, to kind of start this fund management of telling the story of ECS. So beyond just writing a proposal, one of the things that is that I realized in the work at the Carnegie, and they're really good at this, is that really what sells the dollars that come into that institution are not one program or one particular individual. It's the story of why the museums exist, why Carnegie came in to create an opportunity for inclusivity in science, right, or in the arts. And so that story and that narrative needs to be blown up, collateral developed, and really tooled into the community so that we can start to develop not only our philanthropic relationships, but we've got lots of individual donors in this city and lots of folks that are choosing to send their children to a private or a public school rather than a private school and stay in the city. There's, again, money on the table if that story and that narrative are more accurately told. And then the third piece that, that came across, at least this is something that's really interesting as you all are watching things unfold, is the teaching profession is hitting a crisis mode. And as a foundation, you can take part of that advocacy and part of the reasoning behind what makes ECS tick is inherently the thing you spend most money on, which are its people. If you start losing the most important asset in your institution, the value proposition of your asset will go down. And so as a foundation, you need to start paying attention to how are we recruiting, retaining, and actually getting the best in the business to come to ECS. We know that the number of certificates in the state of Pennsylvania has gone down threefold in the last 24 months. So the scarcity of teachers is not just coming down the pike, it's here. And so it's not going to be a question of can we find teachers, it's going to say, we're going to be saying, where can we steal them from? Because this is the best place to work. As a foundation, that's part of the sustainability and thinking about how we can, again, reimagine or rethink the profession to, in those early days, and I look at you, Chelsea, like this is some of the stuff that we are talking about in the very early days at ECS of how can we make this a space, a place in which people from all over either want to transition into being an educator or an administrator here, or believe that this is the only place that they will actually apply for a job. So those three kind of pronged approaches are what I came to John and said, I'm kind of in a unique position right now in that I still have, it's not going to take me 6 months to do stakeholder mapping of the folks who are in the building. I can do that in more rapidly. I can also begin to get John out to do meetings with relationships that we've developed over time. And get into spaces where he's having coffee and telling that story that I told you about, and also saying, hey, ECS is on the forefront of not only trying to produce a different way of doing public education here in the city of Pittsburgh, but it's also trying to think about what we're going to do about the teacher crisis. That's, oh, by the way, it already started. And we're going to be seeing that here in the city of Pittsburgh, which, as you know, it influences the quality of life, where people live, tax base, all of those things. If you don't have high quality schools here in the city, people will count. So I'm here to kind of be an advocate for you. I put a proposal together. I believe that Michelle and the Finance and Facilities Committee reviewed it to think about those two prongs. I'm willing to ask or answer any questions that you may have. And then I want to just throw out one last piece that I'm proposing that you can kind of chew on a little bit, in that we had a board, because it's as a nonprofit, as a separate 501c3, the foundation had a board members, I think that actually might have been on the board member on the original bylaws. But we have the opportunity to engage a small board now to start this guidance in these early stages to make sure that financially and legally we're in a space that we're not making any mistakes, and also I can lean on for expertise so that when we pass this on to an executive director, that it is in good shape from a legal and a financial space, hopefully in January 2024, to take it on as a sister organization to ECS. My proposal is that we bring in 2 past board chairs as the primary folks that would serve on that for the first 6 months. And then we can decide at that point to see if there are other folks that we should bring with, being thoughtful about diversity, about the reach and spaces in which they live in the city and influence that they have. But I'm proposing to bring Ben on, since you're rolling off and we just can't do enough of you. And the financial expertise that would be helpful as we're in these spaces, and working with Crawford Ellenbogen and making sure that Michelle and I are in agreement of how those processes move forward. And then the other person, and I will pass her CV around, is Amy Constantine, who is she's the current district attorney for the city of Pittsburgh. She was our second board chair, I believe, an East End resident, and has been really instrumental in kind of all of the turmoil that was happening in those early years at ECS, specifically with Imagine Schools, and understanding the importance of the legal divorce between the entities. So I would love to be able to, and Ben knows this too, that we're just kind of tossing this out. I'm obviously not signed off to work on this yet. So hopefully in the consent agenda, you move forward with moving forward with that proposal, and I can bring the first slate of board members for your approval. Questions? Thoughts?
I love it. I love the energy. I'm just speaking my language. I don't know why this school isn't broadcast everywhere, because I think that we're poised to be the most eco-friendly educational system, certainly in this area, in the country, and maybe the world. And I just feel like that should be through the rooftops, And I don't know why we're not knocking on waste management and saying, who's your ecosystem? Give us $2 million and put your name on our school. And I'm just like, the money is there and the investment is worth it. So, I love it.
And one of those key factors too, and again, if you know me from anything, I will not take money from people that I believe are not in full service or believe or meet the value. So you'll see that in the framework and development of the foundation, it's paying attention to making sure that ECS actually walks the talk.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go after Exxon. We're not going to go after BP. We're not going to go after a fracking organization, though those may be folks that want to give us a chunk of change. That's not going to sit well, and that's actually not showing our students how to create thoughtful ways of investing in our community. So know that that has to be part of this conversation too, that we're not just money grabbing, just like we would do a solid investment plan around ecologically relevant and thoughtful companies. This is that same level of strategy.
Sure.
And I think I'm uniquely poised, if I just toot my own horn for a moment there, to kind of straddle that, that kind of, I don't know what it would be called, the line between kind of understanding sustainability, but also money is good, right, Michelle? Right. And we need money to make money and to make things happen.
I have another quick question.
Yeah.
Just like, it was brought to my attention through a friend of mine, like scaling the Pittsburgh Business Times big black book of anybody who's, nonprofit, eco in their name, and starting there would be more lucrative or more in line with where we're going.
That's definitely on the radar too, of making sure that we've got that. So again,
Just going through.
combing through and making sure that whoever is running the organization next has kind of the strategy and the framework to start that, so that we're not starting from zero.
Nicole, thank you so much. This is fantastic. The proposal is great, and love hearing you talk. Just to understand the proposal a little bit more, so what's before us is essentially a 1-year role for you as a outside contractor, I guess, is that right? And then would need to be reviewed after a year, is that right?
That's right, and I actually was extending it, I don't know that it's in this version, but to January of 2024. Keep my numbers right. Mainly because there's that onboarding piece, which is the critical piece for whoever the PD would be. Arguably, I would want that to have that control.
And how much time would you anticipate spending on this, like?
Right now, if all parts of this contract, this would be 100% of my time, I will take in additional proposals. So if we factor, which is why I gave it kind of 3 phases, so I can, if there are ways in which you would prefer, I'd like to do it as a whole thing, over the course of that. And it's the other piece of this, because I know a little bit about your financial model, but this spans over 2 fiscal years for you, 1.5 per year for me.
Nicole, when I look at the plan and see options, really options are more synonymous with phases.
Truly, yes.
Got it. Okay, I was getting a little lost. I was like, is this a package? Is this like, okay, all right, that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Although arguably the piece 1 and option 1 and 2 are so interwoven.
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of the narrative development, and also it's almost like 2 proposals that are working together. The third piece around the cyclical timeline, outlines for an annual processes and databases, that's like the level of detail that the executive director will be able to walk into and start. So technically they're phases, but they're also happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
I can cut things out if there are.
Did those on the Zoom have any questions?
I do not. Thank you for asking. Great presentation on the whole.
Who's up there?
Yeah.
And Nicole, if we process this evening, one of the first sort of journeys is to formulate that board, ultimately work on some mechanisms, right, to help our existing board nominate that growing board to support you. So between now and next month, one of the many tasks will be to sort of build out that mechanism that's consistent with our current bylaws for the board here, to ensure we have some folks ready to nominate in January.
I think the last thing I'll just note too is that, UCS is now a teenager, right? And just as I have one at home, which is a little, there's some moments that you just want to slam the door and say, oh dear God, how did we get here? But this is also the time where you take the values and you double down, right? And we make sure that that teenager gets in a space where it can be living a thoughtful, prosperous adulthood, right? So this is also the longevity of the organization. Those school districts that are doing great work in the community have a foundation entity that's doing this work. This is not an unusual or weird thing. We are just UCS has not been in a space of time to allow it to develop. And to be honest, it's teenage yeardom is the right time to start to say, okay, what does this now look like for the adult to take flight?
For me, certainly, the money and the support of our programs and activities is tremendous. The last part, and that is the nurturing faculty and the reason to do this work, is about the most important work in our sector currently. So if ECS can lead the way in this space across the city and have the loudest voice, it'll have multiple benefits for education generally, but certainly being massively selfish here in this organization will benefit it greatly. we'll restart. I love the way that you referenced Chelsea at the end there, because Chelsea remembers those very rich, those very collaborative, those very passionate conversations about who we wanted to be. And we journeyed a long way. And so to Nicole's point, the timing is perfect to revisit that, come back to center, to understand why we do this work, and set out our journey as an organization for the next 10 years. And this foundation is going to help us do that with these conversations, and also sort of self-fund those conversations. They don't come free, either from a financial or time perspective. So I'm super excited. This is very much the next element of growth of our organization. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing that.
And John, John has previously laid out to the board a very broad vision for the foundation, and specifically those things, teacher development, and really like some very specific ideas. So is it fair to say that your visions align on this? And I assume you've discussed all these things in depth, and
Very much so.
the things that you've laid out for us are the things that
That you are hearing echoed in Nicole's work, and ultimately we'll get to live it here.
And I mean, partly I've known them forever, but I listen and I'm a problem solver. So I'm like, okay, here's where your problems are. And things like draw it out. And then, so okay, here's how this is where we need to move to get where we want to go.
It all sounds good. I mean, at the end of the day, it benefits our kids and our teachers. Yeah. and services.
kind of shows. That's what that is.
Michelle gets the final
So
word.
it starts with Michelle.
Right, so it sounds like we'll revisit this in the consent agenda. Thank you so much, Nicole.
No problem, thank you.
And thanks to Sarah also, who spent a lot of time working.
And
also with Nicole.
All right, the last piece of board business, so we would like to vote on our new board members. We have Stan O'Loughlin, who is not available to be present today, but we will still vote on him, and Jennifer Pursuti. So we can go ahead and, actually, Jen, would you be willing to just kind of introduce yourself and like do that down?
Absolutely. So thank you all for having me. My name is Jen Pursuti. I appreciate the board's consideration for appointing me and your approval this evening. I hope that with that approval, I'm able to join the board and share with you my background, which is mostly in public finance, operations, planning, asset management. I do have a husband and 2 young daughters, one in first grade and one in second grade. They are not in the ECS school program, so I would be what's considered with this group a non-parent. But looking forward to lending any expertise that I can to this group. If I've sat through 2 of your board meetings already, and I can tell that you're a very passionate, very dedicated group. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, so can we get a motion? Second? Oh, hey, guys, keep off mute. Dan, Angela, Kristen. All right, all in favor? Thank you. Any objections? All right, so moved. So next month, we will actually have someone present to swear you in. Very cool. So we look forward to that. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's circle back to the consent agenda. With the board minutes and financial statements, and then any questions about any of the expenses over 10,000. Third one, which is Foundation proposal. Purchase some new bands. Do you want to just give a quick blurb about that?
Lots of bands, right? Yes. So 3 activity bands that come online that they've been talked about for many years since I've been personally everyone. So these are 9 passive events, 3 that arrive for allowing at least class, but also clubs, sports, and beyond. So they come online, they're actually here currently. The high-sided bands with accessibility and ultimately we worked with our insurance company to ensure that we build protocols to make sure that our drivers are all competent and beyond, right? So I would get a training on the 4th, one of many I'm sure that we have going through to identify drivers and train them. We've now some company coming in to help with training, but ultimately we have a group of drivers that allow us to move students through the world. Endless possibilities. Chelsea gets to take her group out.
I was thinking of signing up to still.
Line of sight, so you're going to get picked on that. We want our high schoolers to be able to go down and tutor kids in the primary school. We've long wanted to do that. That suddenly allows this. So it's been, we've long needed bands, and we've sat down for a long time. Also, just for that, we took one small school bus coming on board, the traditional yellow school bus. We need that to try to work on offering some transportation for special needs transportation within the system, and it costs us a great deal of money, and we're beginning to do that. So we're taking on one bus to begin with, looking for a driver currently. This is a youth school bus. It's a small one. It doesn't require a special CDL, none of the buses do, and so we'll have that in the school as well. So we'll be putting that online, and those are live in January. So suddenly we find ourselves with a parking lot. So, yeah, suddenly anyone that has a large garage, but all, high school goes in, high school, we potentially might use some space here in the driveway, but we're thinking through that, so obviously we'll be able to lit. So that'll become a challenge going forward, but we've got some road space here. Well, they're going to be racked too, right? So they'll be used. You'll see these 3 vans with logos on the side, and passport chairs, face. Joking there. That's you are there. So yes, it's been budgeted for a long time. So thank you. All the teams that have ordered and looked after them. Working with getting these things on so yeah, backup cameras and school teams would be very happy because they have all kinds of transportation challenges.
That's great news. Any other questions or comments? All right, so with that, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? First? Second? Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. All in favor for those on the line?
Aye.
Thank you. Any objections? All right, so moved. Thank you.
So just want to point out that the last one on the consent agenda was the Vermont Development LLC. That is to support investing in our bathrooms in middle school. Middle school bathrooms never built very well with cheap drywall, and so it's lining and painting and so
Thank you. All right, we will move into committee reports. So in our last committee report, we talked a little bit about the inclement weather policy and just if you have a moment, if you can just kind of explain how that impacts teachers, if there's any impact to teachers versus kids.
The weather,
Yeah.
severe weather. Yeah, so, this came about just to give you some background on where the change was. Well, first of all, with COVID, we now know that we can do remote learning. And then, last year, we saw kind of a record number of days out for different reasons. So we had COVID quarantines, we had cold days in February, you name it, and we were getting very close to that one magic 182 number that you need as a school in order to have a school year counted. And so we did desperately need a possibility of using snow days as virtual instruction days if we got to a point where we're needing those instruction days. I do recognize that snow days are important for everyone, for joy and play and laughter. But we also need to recoup some of the education that we've lost during the pandemic. And so we just needed an option as a leadership team of being able to tell when we might need to have our kids do some remote learning. If it is a delay, it's the same thing that we've had every year. If it's a delay because of cold, our educators have always been asked to come down time so that we can use that time for planning, for prep, for PD. If it's weather, 2-hour delay because of road conditions, we always say, come when you are able. Nothing has really changed there. And so what we've asked them to do is that the default would be that we would have remote learning and come into work. However, listen to the news, listen to those alerts, because we will not use judgment when it might be a good snow day to have a snow day. So rest assured, nothing has really changed. It is just providing us some additional options.
Thank you.
Southwestern Pennsylvania, is planning for a snow day.
It is actually, so Friday, we're not in school, but most of, I did hear we have another, the executive director at secondary, his children go to a different school district and they're in on Friday. And they've already said, like, just beware, this day is now changing to that day, just in case, so.
Frigid day.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. We also just talked about, which actually Mandy had spoke about this last year or earlier this year, but just some of the emotional support that our kiddos are offered throughout the school year. The counselors are in classrooms doing lessons, pushing in. There are opportunities for students to make anonymous calls if they're witnessing any sort of bullying or think that's needing some additional support. So many different avenues, many efforts going to support our kids. So that's always good to hear. And I think that was primarily it. I mean, this was also something that we had talked about earlier in the year, but learning that some of our high school students will be starting some classes at Chatham if they already do that. I don't want to say a little bit more about that.
I think it's about 10 students at our high school who are taking a literacy course at Chatham. We've already had their orientation day. We had some nice pictures on social media too of all of our kids out with their Chatham wear. And they took a bus over there with our counselors so that we could get a tour. And then we're also supporting them here. It's one of the things obviously that we're concerned about is our kids taking college level courses, making sure that they're also successful this time around. And so their schedules will allow for additional block of time during the day, or kind of like a study hall with just those kids so that they can go back to their projects. They'll have a teacher that can kind of guide them through that process. And so we're really excited about that opportunity. The kids are really excited about it too. And the high school would be fun to take a class on college.
Right. Was there a cost associated with that for the kids?
Not for the kids. Yeah, we didn't want that to be a barrier. I'm unfortunately, the barrier became vaccines.
Chattering tires and
Most college and universities do require an on-campus student to be fully vaccinated. And so it's just something to kind of keep in mind as that COVID lingers on.
Yeah.
We just don't want it to be a barrier for attendees who can't. So we did have calls to families, try to explain what was going on, but there is no choice.
Well, thanks for that. What great opportunities for our kids, right? Moving forward. Adam and Kristen, I'll turn it over to you for any governance updates.
Did you want me to talk about, do you want to do the bylaws thing now? Or is that-
We're gonna vote on that. You can, yeah,
Okay. No major governance issues at this point. Recruiting for new board members is still ongoing. But the big thing that we've discussed at the last 2 meetings is updating our bylaws to make it a little bit easier to recruit parents and non-parents. So we've gone back and forth quite a bit on this language, but the bottom line is that I think we just need to adjust the bylaws to give ourselves a little bit more flexibility so that if a couple members leave or join the board, we're not suddenly out of compliance, which is kind of where we are right now. So the current bylaws say that up to no more than 1/3 of board members can be current ECS parents, which has been somewhat limiting for us. So we've talked about different options for this, but the one that I think, having thought about this a lot and gone back and forth, the one that I think gives us the most flexibility and still retains what we're looking for is the language that we have in the agenda tonight, which essentially says that a minimum of 25% of the board members will be parents and a minimum of 25% of the board will be non-parents, and that just gives us the flexibility in either direction. The risk or downside of having that language, obviously, is that we could end up in a position where we have 75% parents or 75% non-parents, but the additional language that we put into this bylaws update, hopefully will keep us from having that happen, because it says that we are going to strive for parity and just try to keep it as even as possible. But we could not really think of a better way to accomplish what we want without also continuously having to change the bylaws every time we have go a percentage or two over. So that's where we are with it right now. There's been some disagreement about it, but I feel like we should just get something done so we can move on a little bit with our lives and be able to keep recruiting. So that's the proposal, but it's open for discussion. And I will point out that based on our current bylaws, which I looked at earlier today, if we are making a bylaws change, we need to have 3/4 of a vote. 3/4 have to be in favor of the members who are present at the meeting. So that's what we would need to accomplish this. I will now open it up for discussion.
And the language that is being proposed is on the agenda. So I agree. There was a lot of back and forth about this. I will admit that I had some reservations about it. But I do appreciate the language around parity, and that just trust that the board will always strive for that.
That is probably necessary. I mean, we struggled over the last handful of years to find non-parent board members. It's been more of a challenge to find non-parent board members. It feels like it had been in the past, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
That's all I got.
So You can vote on that, Anna. Any comments or feedback from those who are on the line?
Thanks for asking.
All right, so resolution 2022-12-2075, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the board bylaws be amended as noted on 12/21/22. Go for it. All right.
Can you read? I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I was like,
I
yeah.
was just.
You gave it
Those.
Well, I will go to the further resolve, because that's essential for voting on. So, further resolve that the following sentence shall be added to the end of section 4.4 in its place, which shall read as follows. The Board of Trustees shall have a minimum of 25% of its board members be parents of current students, and a minimum of 25% be non-parents of current students. While this rule always allows, while this rule allows flexibility in composition to enable the board to respond to member vacancies or recruitment challenges, the board shall endeavor for parity between the number of members who are parents of current students and of the members who are not parents of current students when practically possible. And so, and I would like to make a motion. Can I have a recess? Thank you, Adam. Second? Thanks. Second. All in favor for those who are on the line?
Aye.
Thank you. Dan?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, we got it. Took us a
All
while.
right. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, Adam, and everyone in Kristen for shepherding us through that.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yes. Meryl's not present, so I don't know that there are any updates additional.
The only thing is that, the education committee would just like to know if there's other things that you would like us to focus on. During the rest of the year. So if you want to send me an email or you can talk after this, if there's something that you want me to focus on in my education reports or something that you think that you need to know in order to be more successful as a board member, just let us know and we'll try to do that education.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Chelsea.
Thank you. I just have a quick statement prepared by my team. So we, the ECSFT Executive Committee, want to extend thank you for the backpacks. They were a really nice holiday gift. And also thank you to the PCO for our holiday gift as well. It was really generous and wonderful to receive. We hope that everyone has a well-deserved break. We need it, right? Starting tomorrow, let's go. So unfortunately, I know Katie last time talked about this hard to hire grievance. It has yet to be resolved and it will be moving on to arbitration if we can't come to a solution, but we want a compromise and we are working to set up our next off-the-record meeting, I think on the 4th. So I think we can come up with a time and a date for that. We're all going to come together and come up with a solution that will be agreeable to all sides because I think, yeah, it's very tricky situation and some morale has been lowered because of it. So I think that coming up.
Siri wanted
Siri.
to.
All right. You can come to the meetings too. Anyway, so in the spirit of the new year coming up, I wrote out some resolutions for the union for 2023. I've got 3. Our first one is going to be to recommit to our monthly home office and union meeting discusses, which you might have seen in your inboxes. So we've got one scheduled for the 13th. Those meetings are just so great to get ahead of the problems, and I think we've all just been like kind of running around. I myself have been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I think if we recommit to that, we can, resolution 2, work together with our administrators and home office to get ahead of these problems before they become bigger and turn into grievances. And then our third resolution is to work with our administrators and home office to improve morale across the district. And I think it looks different in all 4 buildings. So I think working together to find solutions for that. And it's really connecting with what you were saying, Nicole, about making ECS the most desired place to come work, because I know that staffing is an issue that causes, is affecting morale at the middle school especially. And I remember when I first started at ECS, like, it was the coolest place to work. But I remember telling people, oh yeah, we're hiking groups and all we do is hike and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was the place to go if you love the environment and things like that. So I'm excited for what's to come to get ECS this like coveted position again. So, yep, those are our 3 resolutions. And if you have anything for us, we're here for you. And I'm going to send the statement to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tia, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Since our last meeting, I had an opportunity to meet with some members of the home office. Dina, Kristen, and Christine came to my home and had some coffee, and it was relaxed. It was sort of off the cuff. It was off the record even. And we got to really get down to the nitty-gritty of brainstorming some real resolutions and ideas for what we all want, which is the sort of common thread in all we're saying, is the sense of community. This like real sense of this school and its vibrance and its specialness. In that meeting, among so many things, and it was sort of all over the place. We touched on some things about getting some money in through some eco donors, and we talked about uniting our parent community and our school community, which has been something I've been talking about since I stuck my nose in everywhere that I have since I became part of the ECS, but I'm finally gaining traction. Some of the parents that have been like, who is this girl? And, you know, I'm starting to get that, but they're starting to understand that my efforts are benign and that I'm just really trying to have the best outcome for everybody, every family, every student, every teacher, and every faculty, every administration, and all sort of even on our mission, which is the citizen initiative and growing citizens, and they need support. I don't know what's going on with teachers, but I know it's Operation Burnout across the globe, not just in education, but in medicine and in everywhere. The pressure is on in society, and we are all post-COVID and just in the year 2022 as people, we're navigating a really strange time and place. And we're all looking for resolutions in common place and how we can lift and love each other. That's my mission, and that's sort of my story, and I'm sticking to it. So as far as the PCO and what I have to report, I have met with some student council representatives of the high school who are planning a dance. I brought this up last time, so I'm just leading by example and getting in and trying to bring the morale up and get the life back and excitement back in places that have sort of been shadowed. So, so the high school is very excited about planning their holiday dance, which is taking place right here in the space right here. And Joe Farrington and I, the treasurer, and myself met with the representatives from the some people who are helping the student government get some things off the ground. Anyway, so we're getting them a cash box. They're going to be able to do their own ticket sales and their own fundraisers. And the idea of these kids having real money at their fingertips was like astounding to them. They just never thought that they could afford cardboard boxes to keep and make decorations. And now there's going to be a box at every school. And there's a Sign Up Genius out in the Pulse coming up for tool and cardboard and paint and linens, and you name it. And I really think that they're going to get a really great donation. They're going to get a really great, what's the word I'm looking for? Participation in all of the things that they need to have that and really come off the ground. And it was just the Pandora's box. So this is their first dance, and now that they can get like a cash box and do all kinds of fundraising events on their own, the sky's the limit for them. And at that very meeting, the excitement was palpable, and that's what makes my blood just flow. I just was really excited to be there and feel their excitement on their next opportunities going forward. And it was actually mentioned at that meeting that some of those students, because they have never had a graduating class, they're our oldest, the 11th and 10th graders, that they're having a hard time having a sense of real high school. And they're trying really hard to be normal, you know, and I felt that in their, just in the way that they presented themselves. And I want to make that happen for them, not just me, but having outreach to their parents and their families and saying, hey, you can donate this stuff and just drop it off at the house. I just feel like maybe the communication or the door, the opportunity door is still closed in some way, and we're still sort of breaking down those barriers. It's hard. It's a hard time to navigate. But I am happy to report that meeting with those high school students was a high mark in my agenda, my initiative here, which is to unite this community and unite not just the primary school and the intermediate school, but all 4 districts. We also talked about at our executive meeting, our brainstorming meeting, about ways to have events be all-inclusive, more focus on all-inclusive events, because teachers who have had these students as little ones and they're doing things as big kids want to know what they're doing too. So I think having a pipeline between all 4 schools is another thing that we're all trying to work on as a parent community. And that's pretty much everything. Everybody's really excited about holiday parties and wrapping up for break, so. Happy holidays. Yeah.
Sarah, Angela, and or Dan, do you want to give a finance and facility update?
I can jump in from a finance perspective. Just wanted to note one item that John, Mandy, and Michelle did meet with Crawford Ellenbogen for schools accountants earlier this week to review the budget for next year along with the 5-year pro forma. So those conversations continue, and we'll be meeting again next month as well.
As for facilities, I met with the architect, Craig, the attorneys, and the Stewart brothers. We're going to be going out to bid in early January, probably with a virtual package or early package demolition of the existing structure, followed up with future 4 or 5 bid packages. We're closing in on getting the non-technical specs cleaned up and ready to go. And we should really be on the street by early mid-January. So moving forward with pretty well with that.
Angela, can I turn it over to you for a moment to talk about next steps with strategic planning?
Sure, yeah. So I have the most current kind of like overview from Peggy. I don't know if you want me to share my screen. I can email it to you. I don't know if everyone can see. I don't know what the setup is there. If it's just
if you can maybe send it out to us, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, I will email it to the board after the meeting. But where we are right now, hopefully, is kind of at our last revision here of what is the overview of the strategic plan. I know, Adam, you had asked a good question. Is that it, or are we diving into what is here a little bit more? And yes, what you see in what I've sent to you guys we will much further elaborate into kind of action items, if you will. And I think what I wanted to do today was kind of just talk through like the 5 pillars, I suppose, that we chose as kind of focus and topic. And then the intent is in the January meeting, Peggy will come and we will present the whole strategic plan to the board in hopes to have it approved and rolled out with the administration when the time is right. So I'm going to kind of just talk through the 5 things, and then I will send this, and if you guys have any questions or feedback, just let me know. But we opened up with just the mission of the school, and then a brief little introduction about what we value as a school, what's important to us, how the strategic plan was created, like how data was collected and what was important to the school. And we landed on 5 goal areas: teaching and learning, teachers and staff, family engagement and support, community connection, visibility and thought leadership. Trying to just focus on a lot of the things that have seemed to be important to the school, in the last couple of years. I will send this out. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If anyone has any questions right now, happy to try to answer or pass the questions along.
Thanks, Angela. I don't know that any of us have any questions right now, but we'll
Sure.
definitely look forward to reading the full document and then the presentation next month.
Okay.
Is Peggy coming in person next month?
That's the intention. She's actually flying back into Pittsburgh the morning of the meeting, so she just said as long as nothing goes awry with her flights, she plans to be.
Okay. Okay. It's great to have people so dedicated to ECS. We'll fly the same day. And John, it looks like we have another vote on the confidential settlement agreement.
Yeah, and I'll just email out to everybody to review, and then you should have to vote. So you can talk about the specific subject, but
Sure. Is that something that maybe?
Yeah, well, let's probably in the second session to have that conversation when you come out. But
Thank you. Huh? All right, so before we move into executive session, are there any other comments, questions, or reportings? All right, then I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session, and I got it first. Thank you, Sapna. All in favor? Thank you. No objections. All right, if we can just give a moment for our guests. Yeah, sorry. I don't think anyone joined, right? I kept looking at it, but
I
zero
don't think
means-
so.
Okay. Yeah, if we could just give a moment and then we'll